Welcome to the Tinderbox Podcast, where we amplify marginalized voices and we ignite actionable change to build healthier communities. I am your host, Mishka Russell, and in our mission to fight health inequities, we often talk about access to quality health care, whether that be doctors or fresh food or safe housing. However, there is a more powerful and profound access that we need to talk about, and that's access to mental and emotional first aid. We want to talk about what we can do in the very moment when crisis strikes and where do we turn. And for many of us who are in the Black and marginalized communities, the answer has been one of two places, either church or nowhere, right? So this has the potential to create burden as well as a powerful opportunity for our faith leaders to have a greater awareness at the intersection of faith and mental health. So today we'll be diving into a critical question. What happens when the sanctuary becomes the front line for mental health intervention? And to help us explore this question, we're going to speak to our guest who lives in that intersection every single day. I want to introduce you to Reverend LaTonja D. Ellis, who is pastor of Grant Chicago AME Church, which is located in the historic Bronzeville community. And Reverend LaTonja isn't just a spiritual shepherd. She is a certified mental first aid instructor and facilitator, helping to train everyday people to recognize and respond appropriately to mental illness symptoms and those effects of substance abuse for adults and for youth. So, LaTonja, thank you for being that spark for this conversation today. I'm excited for our listeners to hear your voice and to learn something about this topic within our culture as well as our community. So I want to begin by asking you, what drew you to being a mental first aid instructor and the passion that you have for this particular work for our community?
First of all, thank you for allowing me to be here.
Thank you.
I'll say the thing that drew me into doing this work is living with a family member who lived with a mental challenge every day. My uncle, he lived with schizophrenia every day of his entire life up until about 4 years ago before he passed. And so you can imagine the impact that had on my family. Me being the niece and loving my only uncle and trying to figure out what was wrong with him, and the family members not really talking about it. So as I grew older and figured out what was really happening, then I wanted to know more. And so I got the opportunity when I worked at the University of Chicago with campus and student life as a dean on call and a sexual assault dean on call. I was able to go through the mental health first aid process myself, and then was allowed to be a part of the inaugural team on campus where we trained staff, students, anyone who was a vendor, our police officers in mental health first aid. And so that initial spark as a young person trying to figure out what was wrong with my own family member keeps me going to this day.
Thank you for that. I want to thank you for being vulnerable in this space and sharing that personal story to add more context to the heart that you have for this work and the passion that you have around it of being a champion for education and training in this mental health first aid and awareness. And so tell me a little bit, you listed from being at the University of Chicago a lot of different sectors of training, whether it be police officers or students, people in the community. And now that you're a pastor in the Bronzeville area, there's a wider context with regards to spirituality and religion. So tell me a little bit about bridging those different sectors in this training and some of the things that come out of it based off of those contexts.
Yeah. Mental health first aid is separated by demographics pretty much. So you have adults, you have youth, and then you have those teens, because we know teenagers have their own thing going on.
They
right?
do.
You have to wonder, is it really just hormones or is it actually a mental health challenge?
Sure,
right?
absolutely.
So 3 different sectors, and within those sectors for each one, there is training specific to folks who live in rural areas, elderly populations, police officers, military, government officials, folks who may live in urban areas. So there's a lot of different smaller sections of it that you can add to the context, especially when you're going into different organizations. So for instance, faith organizations, there's a spiritual piece. They're developing that piece of it. Because of the context that I'm in, I can speak to some of those things.
Sure.
In government, there's a section for that. And so we continue to just know that mental health challenges face us in every aspect of life, right? Whether that is the workplace, you see a lot of things happening in workplace, faith organizations, community organizations, which is really your general population, within families, and a lot of different places where we would not even think about talking about it.
Yeah, and I like that specialized care. And that in itself brings a perspective with regards to mental health and well-being, because it's not a one size fit all. It's not one person has this type of diagnosis and so you address it this particular kind of way. And so I like that there's that specialization in the training. And so dig a little deeper into the mental first aid training. Tell us a little bit more about the aspects of it and the things that people will learn with regards to the training.
Yeah, so mental health first aid was developed in Australia. So we can't claim it in the United States. We didn't come up with it. Two physicians came up with the fact that, or saw the need for folks who were coming into clinics and hospitals and they needed a different level of care, right? You go into your doctor's office and you see now that they're asking more questions about how are you feeling?
Yeah.
Have you been thinking about suicide or killing yourself, right? You see some of those questions now as a result of the work that they did starting in 2000 when it came over to the U.S. And so from there, we think about and teach about how to recognize the signs and symptoms of mental illness. So those things that we probably wouldn't really pay attention to. Teaching folks about what those things are, how to recognize it, and then how to interact with somebody who's having a mental health challenge, right? Many of us are fearful of folks who are going through psychosis or having an episode, as we say, or just really struggling, right? So it teaches individuals how to interact and not tolerate, let me say that. How to interact with folks, how to help them make better choices so that they can get to professional help. And so we don't diagnose anyone unless that is your profession, right? First and foremost. We help people have choices to get to professional help so that they can get into recovery.
I love that you have a variety of choices that people can decide to become educated on, and that there is that ability to learn and have these skill sets that we don't normally have. We've been socialized to other people, unfortunately, right? We've been socialized to label people as fill in the blank. And what I hear you saying is that there is an invitation to use language differently. So tell me a little bit more about that. How do we use language differently when we're talking about mental wellness and well-being?
Yeah, so when you think about it, we all are guilty. Let me just
Yes.
say this right now.
Yes.
We are all guilty, pastors included, whoever you are in your role, your title, all of us are guilty of saying things that we didn't know the impact of, first and foremost, right? If we were to talk about the words that we've heard, you're crazy, you're riding the short bus, your elevator doesn't go to the top, right? We've heard all the things, Delulu, right? All the things, you're crashing out. We keep hearing it every day still, right? But the language piece puts labels on people. And so when you think about it, we teach in the course that we use a person first language. So if you realize when I was talking about my uncle, I said he lived with schizophrenia. You live with depression. You live with anxiety because you are a person, a human first, just as God created you, before you were diagnosed with something.
Absolutely.
And to be honest, all of us have mental challenges. I hate Chicago traffic. It gives me anxiety.
I hate it as well.
That's a universal thing for a lot of folks who live in the Chicagoland area. We all have points where we're a little depressed or we're sad or worried or whatever it is. So we're not exempt. We just are not diagnosed with it because it hasn't happened more than 2 weeks, right? So we have to just think about the person being a human And number two, how would you want to be treated if you were suffering or living with whatever it was that you've been diagnosed with?
Yeah. And I like that you put it in the context that we all have symptoms,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
With the influx of all the different things that are happening in our society, with the deluge of things that cause us to have trauma or stress us out, the overwhelming news, fill in the blank of what's happening. That's our world is on fire, right?
Every day.
Sometimes figuratively and literally. And so to normalize it, that it is not this taboo thing.
Right.
And it is not anything to be, I heard you use the word earlier, fearful of.
Yes.
But to really delve into understanding what mental health is or mental illnesses are, and the diagnoses, and to how to appropriately be that bridge between someone getting the care that they actually need, the higher level of professional care that they need. And tell me a little bit more about the mental first aid. I know that there is an acronym that's used in the care. So tell me a little bit more about that acronym.
Absolutely. Given that mental health first aid was created in Australia, we have a mascot, as we say, that is a koala, and the koala's name is Algae. And ALGAE is the acronym for the process that we take as far as helping someone get to assistance. So ALGAE, first and foremost, you're assessing what's going on and approaching the situation.
Mm-hmm.
The A sits in the middle because you are constantly assessing what's going on around you with that person, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're observing. So that's really important because we know if you come into any conversation real hot, upset, acting crazy yourself, right? Using that word crazy like we do. Acting that way yourself, the response will be the same. So how you approach a situation could lead to the outcome. Yeah,
right? People are going to meet that energy with whatever energy you're going to give.
Correct, right?
Yeah.
And then the second piece, and these are not linear, you can use them depending on what's happening. Listening, non-judgmental. Keyword,
non-judgmentally.
First word, listening. We were created 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? We don't talk more than they talk. We listen so that we can help them get to a place of making a decision. And non-judgmentally in particular, because we all have our own morals, we all have our own bias, we all have our own ideas about what we should and should. But we remind folks in the course that this is not about you.
Nice.
Right? This is about the person who needs the care and needs to get into recovery.
Yeah.
So no, you can't give your experience because it is not about you, which means you should be talking less. Silence is good, right? It allows people to process what's going on with them.
Yeah.
Then we get to the G, which is giving reassurance. If anyone has been in a situation where you felt a little shaky or uncertain, all it took was for someone to come to you and say, Reverend Mishka, you can do it. Yeah. You can do this. I know you have the skills. Reassurance helps us make better decisions, right?
Awesome.
So giving reassurance. E, we like to call it E1, encouraging professional help. That is the entire goal. Getting the person to professional help, whether that is a doctor, a psychologist, a nurse practitioner, a peer specialist, whoever that is, right? In the context, getting them to that professional to help them make the right decisions to move towards recovery. And then E2, so ALGEE, A-L-G-E-E. Yeah. E2 is encouraging self-help. For those folks who have entered into recovery or are on their way, then they're able to read self-help books and go do different things that will help them really cope with what they're living with, right? Awesome. So that helps us give some foundation to what we're doing in the course.
Yeah, and I thank you for, again, lifting up the active listening. We are so socialized when we talk to people, we're already processing through how to fix someone.
Yes.
We plan, we got an agenda, we're going to do this, and we're not listening actually to what they're saying to us. Yeah. And so there's the verbal cues, but tell me about the nonverbals in the midst of mental health and well-being.
Yeah, so we talk a lot about nonverbals. Yeah. And I always give this example of having to ask the question in the morning as routine as we do, right? We
Yes.
all have our morning routine. We wake up, if we get to work or to church or wherever we're going, we'll say, "How are you?" And then we'll walk away, right? We don't know what you said. We'll just say, "Thank you." Okay. We don't know what
Peace
you
out,
said.
right?
Peace out.
Deuces.
And you could have said to me, "I am having a bad day. I feel like I want to kill myself."
Yeah.
I didn't hear anything.
Hey, have a great day. Bye.
Have a great day. I'm gone, right? So thinking about that.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. Dismissiveness.
Dismissiveness,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
Other nonverbals are being distracted. We're all distracted by our phones and social media and thought processes about what we need to do for the day. We have our list of things that we need to do.
Yeah.
And we want to check those things off. So we really just blaze through life, right? This is helping us slow down a lot more, right?
We are a society of box checkers.
We are a
Yeah.
society of box checkers. I said, as I travel the world, we are the only society that does not have a break in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Everybody else has Selah and siesta. What are we doing? This is contributing to not having good mental health.
Yeah.
And then other things like your posture, the way you're paying attention or looking at me, eye contact, depending on your culture. Things like that make a difference when you are trying to interact with someone who's having a mental health challenge.
Yeah. And that last piece, I love that you brought in cultural humility and cultural sensitivity to this conversation, because a lot of times we don't understand how powerful that is. We are so not curious about other cultures. We are so not curious about how other people live their lives. I heard you say in that response to slow down, and that invitation that we are invited to lean into is to get to know someone, and you get to know them by having conversation and building that trust. And so that's what I hear out of your response and foundational to this training.
Yeah, absolutely, because I have learned myself that I need to slow down. You know me, you know, right?
Just doing too much. We've heard that.
So I've learned myself to slow down, and I wouldn't even say slow down, to just be intentional about the actions that I do.
Oh, I like
every
that
day.
word, intentional.
Being intentional and not saying that I'm busy. I'm being intentional about the work that I'm doing every day. Because when I think about mental health and what it means to me, when we start to think about what a mental challenge is, I love to say that it keeps people from living, loving, and laughing.
Oh,
right?
wow.
The 3 L's.
Sure.
So if I am having issues with living a full life, right? Loving people or being around the folks that I'm in relationship with, and even laughing, we need to get back to laughter and play.
Yeah.
Right?
Belly laughs are a wonderful thing.
I'm telling you, I want to be hurting, right?
Yeah.
If we can get back to that, anything that's keeping a person from doing that can be a mental challenge. So learning that and learning how to be intentional to live into those things as you are, your whole self.
Yeah.
You know, like I said in Genesis, God created us in God's image, which means God gave you all of the emotions that you have.
All of them.
The anger that you have,
Yes.
the anxiety, everything was given to you by the Creator.
Yeah.
So if we truly believe that, then we have to accept that's who we are.
Absolutely. And that getting back to play.
Yes.
Right? A lot of people kind of poo-poo that a little bit. We're adults, and it's think about when we were kids,
Yes.
how free that felt, and to have that playfulness and that discovery. And I see again that invitation in this training to discover the other.
Absolutely.
And not to be fearful just because they are presenting differently, but to really, like you said, slow down and pause to get understanding and to build trust. And going back to that spiritual connection of we are created by the Creator. And so there's value in the other individual, and there's value in their voice and value in their personhood and their humanity. So I really love that aspect of it. So, LaTonja, I want to ask you a question about barriers to care for mental health and well-being. Tell me a little bit about some of those things, especially through the training that you offer, and what's bubbled up in the religious and spiritual care environments with regards to barriers to care.
Oh yeah, we got a whole list, right? So when you think about religious and spiritual care, we think about what happens in the house stays in the house kind of thing.
Yeah.
We don't talk about it at church. There's stigma around it. So that's first and foremost. We don't have the conversation. Two, barriers to healthcare include finances, budgets, political budgets, city government budgets, state budgets. That keeps us from having things. The shutdown of those facilities, mental health facilities, because of the funding, right? The culture that you live in, where however you were born and raised, that may not be something that you talk about. We just know that, similar to my uncle, that's just crazy Uncle Pete, right? In the neighborhood, and you just never talk about it. Or even thinking about, like I said, the access earlier, you may live in a rural area like I did, with one clinic who had one mental health doctor, and if you went to that doctor, everybody knew your business.
Everybody knows your business.
You think about the privacy piece of that as well. So I think there's a lot of different things that can contribute to folks having barriers towards mental health. And even the last thing is themselves, right? Denial.
That's a huge barrier, right?
That is a huge barrier.
Yeah.
I don't want to see myself in that way. I don't want to know if I have a diagnosis. So I just pretend like it's not there.
Yeah. And I want to thank you for sitting in this space. It's very complicated. It has lots of tentacles. The podcast is wanting to amplify what those barriers are to different wellness and well-being in our community, especially for our African American community and marginalized community. And really putting a spotlight on that and getting the resources such as your mental first aid training that you offer for the community as one of those resources that people can tap into to get that trust and understanding of this thing that has a lot of taboo associated with it, and that we can then connect to those professionals that have a greater level of care for persons who need that, who have the symptoms and or have a diagnosis in our community. But it first starts with trust and building trust.
Absolutely.
And so thank you for sitting in that liminal space that has lots of tentacles to it and providing a beacon of light and a spark of hope. So tell me a little bit about the work that you're doing with different sectors and in the community of offering this training, and how persons can get a hold of you with regards to that.
Absolutely. So I do a lot of work with me.
Okay.
National Alliance of Mental Illness. Then there's some other folks that you can connect yourself to, SAMHSA or RAIN. RAIN is specific for sexual assault victims, domestic violence victims. I also do work with community partners such as the Prince Hall Masons, right? The Order of Eastern Stars, many different church organizations, many different organizations that are just doing workplace stuff.
Nice.
So offering that to them, because in different contexts, it means different things. And so I offer that through my company, Elite Communities, where we equip leaders to impact, transform, and empower folks, right? I think learning mental health first aid helps empower people. It helps transform what they're doing each and every day.
Yes.
And mental health first aid transforms you because you have to start with yourself.
Yeah.
So that impact from learning about yourself and learning to interact with others could be transformative for your family, your community, and even your church, right? So you can look me up, www.elite-communities.com, and all of my contact information is there. You can fill out a form, or you can call NAMI specifically in the DuPage area county. Most people request me as a facilitator.
Awesome.
So you can do that too, but I'm available. And of course, Grant AME Church, Chicago, Sundays at 10:30 a.m. You can catch me there as well.
Awesome. I want to shift the conversation. It's connected to mental health and well, but it has some synergy to mental health and well-being. And first aid training is therapy. You mentioned earlier that, again, the impetus is to get people to the right level of care that they need. And it's not the first aider, it's figuring out what or who might that person be. And so associated with that is the word therapy, right?
Yes.
And so that word, that topic has been taboo in our in our culture and in our society. And so tell me a little bit more about therapy and the persons that we're trying to get people to a higher level of care.
Absolutely. So it's interesting that you asked me this. In my last course, I had a person say to me as a pastor that my pastor is my therapist.
Ooh, okay. We don't have time to unpack that.
I had to breathe real hard.
We don't have time to unpack that.
But I said, stick a pin in there. We're gonna come back. Unless your pastor is a certified therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, they cannot be your therapist.
Yeah.
It is a conflict of interest, right?
It is.
So that's a whole long story, but just to say,
whole long story.
Yes, they can offer you spiritual care in a way, but at a certain point, they need to refer you to someone. So therapy, your pastor needs a therapist, right? Everyone.
Say that again.
Your pastor, including yourself.
Yes.
Needs a therapist. We all need someone to talk to, right?
Yes.
But that entails you trusting someone. And therapy is not something that's like a one and done. Mm-hmm. It's a shopping kind of experience, right? And I can give you my experience. My husband and I were in therapy at some point, and the therapist kept saying to me, because she knew I was a minister at the time, she kept saying to me, "What would Jesus do?"
Ooh.
So she mocked me.
Wow.
In therapy.
Wow.
And that gave me a bad taste about therapy.
Sure.
Right? And I didn't go back to see her.
I can see why.
Yeah, you can see why.
I can see why.
Because everything that I said, she would say to me, "What would Jesus do?" So every therapist is not going to be a good fit for you. You need to be somewhere where you can be challenged, mm-hmm. but also be comfortable in, like you said earlier, a safe space, right?
Yeah.
A brave space where you're able to be curious and really be honest with the person, and they're going to teach you some things about yourself. So therapy is something that could change your life, but also give you a different perspective on how you interact with other people.
Yeah. And what I hear you saying in that, into our audience, is you're really interviewing the therapist.
Absolutely.
There's that process that's necessary to find that you have connection with them.
Absolutely.
And that you can trust them in that space. And so that's one of the nuggets that you all need to take away from this podcast right now, this episode. And so you also, in your identities, you sit in an intersection between mental first aid training and facilitating those trainings, and also in spirituality. Yes. And there's some tension that can exist in that intersection, right? Yeah. So tell me about inviting people who are from either spiritual or religious context that come in with, I'm going to use the term preconceived notions. Yeah. And then what do they leave with after they've taken the training? So they're coming in with this agenda that I call.
So if we were to talk about the cliches that we know.
Sure, absolutely.
That all of us church people use.
Yeah.
I am too blessed to be stressed.
Oh, right? There's that, yes.
You are not praying hard enough.
Oh, so there's that one as well.
So when we talk about the tension between mental health and faith spaces, some of that stuff is not good for us, right?
No.
And we find ourselves in a place where we feel like we should be suffering because Jesus suffered, or that we're not suffering enough, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. I believe, this is LaTonja's belief, I believe that God placed people on this earth with skills and knowledge and talents.
Absolutely.
That will allow us to work through some of that suffering that we see, right, or feel, so that we can live life more abundantly. I think that's what my Bible says, right? I want to live life more abundantly. I want to live my best life.
Yes.
So get a therapist. Shop around, because every therapist is not for you. You have to be in a place where, number one, like you said, trust. You trust the person. You can be honest with the person. And I gave the example of my husband and I in therapy, and the person who was the therapist found out that I was a minister in me introducing myself. They asked you, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
And I said, "I'm a minister. I'm about to be ordained XYZ." And everything that she said after that was, what would Jesus do? It left a bad taste in my mouth, right? And I was like, I don't want to go to therapy anymore.
No.
I don't know. And I didn't continue to go to see her because of that. I don't want to be in a place where someone is not listening to me, which is what we teach in mental health first aid.
Yeah.
I need to be in a place where someone can uplift me, encourage me, help me, challenge me, right?
Yeah.
So that I can learn something that impacts me in my life, but also the folks that I interact with.
Yeah. And what I hear you inviting our listeners to consider is when they're looking for a therapist, to interview them.
Yes, absolutely.
And to interview several,
Mm-hmm.
to figure out who you make connection with and who you feel will actually listen to your needs and be able to understand you, even culturally.
Absolutely.
And not have that be a barrier to your care.
Mm-hmm.
And being okay with building community, with having a therapist as part of that community and that resource. Right. We were created to be in community.
Yes. And you can have Jesus and a therapist.
You can have Jesus and a therapist. It's a wonderful combination, right?
Right? Your pastor needs a therapist. You need a therapist, right?
Yeah.
You need some help from someone.
And I love that you are in the sectors that you are providing care for and training for, that you're addressing those disparities of the taboo nature of therapy. And people saying, don't air your dirty laundry out in public. And what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Exactly. I like to call that the Vegas rule in class, right?
Right. And so I want to get into another topic that comes up, which is denial.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about how that shows itself in training, and how do you address denial?
Yeah, absolutely. A piece of the training is what happens when someone doesn't want help.
Okay.
Right? Clearly they're in denial. If you are trained, or if you just know people and are in a relationship with them, you know their mannerisms. You know when they're pulling away from folks. You know what you observed. Their appearance may be different. You may go to that person and say, Mishka, I feel like something's going on. Are you okay? This is what I've seen.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. Can you help me understand what's going on? And they may say, oh, nothing, I'm good.
Yeah.
Or they may not talk to you anymore, or just not be present, right? And some people, when you approach them, again, assessing and approaching, right? Some people don't want the help in the moment because they are still processing where they are in life, right? They're still processing how they got there, or trying to at least.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes folks who are living with mental challenges, they can't really think straight. Their mind is all over the place. Their bodily functions are off, right? Mm-hmm. They're not able to, as we say, be normal, which I hate that term.
Sure.
Just for y'all to know.
Right. What is normal?
Right? So when training, some of the bodily functionings that are happening doesn't allow them to really think about the choice that they need to make. Mm-hmm. And so when you think about that, you have to be cognizant enough to make sure that you are allowing them the space to do that.
And what I hear in that is an invitation to be present.
Yes.
Right? To not want to fix anyone, to not come in with an agenda. Mm-mm. To journey with people.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I love that. What I want to give you an opportunity for our listeners to give us some closing nuggets of wisdom that you can offer to them as a takeaway for our listening community. And what would you like to leave them with?
Oh, yeah. Several things, but I'll go short list.
Okay, short list.
Short list. One, unlearn some stuff. Many of us have been taught things that were totally wrong, right?
Yes.
We've heard the story about the lady with the turkey who cut the turkey a certain way.
Yes.
Because her mother did it a certain way, and then when her mother came to visit her, she was like, why are you cutting the turkey like that? She was like, because you always
right?
did it that way. And she said, girl, I did that because that was the size pan I had. It wasn't because I cut it that way. Like, learn some stuff, right? based on your context and what's happening around you. As we've said earlier, 2026 is unprecedented. And we're all having to adjust, so unlearn some stuff.
Yeah.
So that you can move forward, right? You said the word journey.
Yes.
This is a journey. This is not something that you're going to learn overnight. You're not going to learn new language overnight. Give yourself some grace in that. And I always like to ask the question in some of my trainings, not even per se mental health training. If you were to take a journey and you had a backpack and everybody in the room had to put one item in there, what would that one item be?
Wow. Yeah.
So what are you going to take on the journey with you? Hopefully knowing that it's not about you, right? This is not about you. Third point. This is not about
It is
you.
not.
This is about you allowing someone to make choices so that they can get help. And that's something that makes sense for them. It may not be what you want it to be.
Yeah.
But again, listening non-judgmentally helps us hear and see and not other people. And then I think finally, just be open and curious. Be intentional about your own boundaries and what you are doing in life yourself. Oftentimes, some of the things that we do harm other people, which lead to mental challenges, right?
Yeah.
And so be careful about what we do and what we say. And I'll give you a prime example. Mother's Day is coming up.
Yes, it is.
Holidays come up, right?
Yes.
And we will say to someone, are you going to see your mother?
Yeah.
For Mother's Day, are you traveling? When you honestly don't know what that relationship is. They may be estranged from their family.
Mm-hmm.
So let's stop asking some of those questions in those ways. You can ask what they're doing on that day.
Sure.
But don't connect it to Mother's Day or Father's Day or Easter or Christmas. So just be intentional about your language and how you're interacting with folks, because it does make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I love giving that last nugget because we've done a lot of harm with language.
Oh, yes.
And with good intention.
Yeah.
But the invitation to learn and learn better, to do better, so that we don't harm persons that we care about and those people that we are here to offer aid to.
Yes. Yes.
So I could talk about this subject for so very long because it's so important. Again, we've got so many different things that are happening in our society.
Yes.
And we've got a lot of things that make people feel overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
High levels of stress. When you layer all of that onto health disparities, chronic illnesses, all those different types of things, there's other things that can happen with us mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually if we don't address appropriately this level of care. And that starts by having a conversation like this, being open and vulnerable and creating brave space, right? I'm learning language, I'm learning words, brave space. To invite conversation, to be curious about the other, and sit in wonderment, which listening intently, actively listening, and journeying with people.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you, Reverend LaTonja, for being a guest here on the Tinderbox podcast, being a friend of the podcast, offering your voice that is here in this sacred work and in this very important and tender work that happens in mental first aid training. And so look her up. She gave her information earlier in our episode. And so if you're looking for a resource, if you're looking for something that you can do proactively to help our community with this topic of mental health and wellness, this first aid training for mental health is a wonderful resource and tool to use to help someone out and journey with people who are in despair and need.
Absolutely.
All right. Until next time, I'm going to invite you all to not be that firefighter, but be a bridge to help in building trust and to getting people to the resources that they need. Until next time, stay kindled.